What is going on, jerk faces? It's your boy Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. Yes, we're back live on another extremely hot Tuesday here in Southern California. I don't know where you are, but it's pretty damn hot today. And thank God for the man who invented air conditioning.
Yes, that guy has saved many lives.
Yes, I kiss the feet of this man. I would kiss the feet of this man.
I'll be honest though, I think I'm used to the heat now because I was outside all day today and I was fine. I mean, yeah, I was sweating, but I was like, it was whatever. Now at nighttime, that's where I was like, okay, I'm glad that I have air conditioning because I can't necessarily sleep in that type of weather, but but being out and about doing stuff, being in the heat, I'm like, now that it's been a number of days being that hot, I'm good to go.
Oh, so so you become acclimatized.
Oh yeah, so now it's like for me, it's like everyone thinks I'm crazy because I wear like jeans at work. It's like, oh, how can you like be outside and wear? It's like, well, A, I don't want to cut my legs open, and then two, it's like I'm just used to it. So
right. Yeah, I don't know why, but like I don't know if I'll ever be acclimatized to hot weather. One, because I sweat worse than a cold Coke can in Arizona.
Yeah, it'll be 60 degrees and you'll still sweat.
You laugh, but it's true. It's happened. It's absolutely happened.
I've been there for our multiple recordings of the podcast, and it's like even it's like cold. It's like I'm wearing a sweater, and you're like, "God, can you turn on the air conditioning?"
yeah. Even the times we like record in the winter, I'm, because I'm setting up the equipment, and I'm like, I'm sweating bullets. I don't know. It's in my blood, dude. I just run hot all the time.
Yeah. Say some people are like that, and they just the cold weather works better for them. I've always been a hot climate guy. I don't know, like maybe because the sports I like are in the summer. It's just I just love summer. I love it. It takes me a few days to get used to it, but once I'm used to it, like I'm good to go.
Yeah, no, my ideal vacation would probably be Alaska.
Yeah, you'd still be sweating out there too.
I know. I'm still like, man, it's so hot.
It's 40 below, Andy. Like it's not hot.
It's like, what do you got, man? It's so hot. But all right, let's get this conversation started.
Alrighty.
I would ask you how your weekend was, but I was part of your weekend, so.
That is true. You were a part of my weekend.
So we did film for the main podcast on Sunday, and just it was rife with technical difficulties. But we soldiered on bravely. But I was really dreading the Monday afterwards, and I have to go through all the footage and try to put it all together. I was legitimately dreading opening up that file and having to go through everything, and because I tried, I pieced it all together, and I try to sync up the audio and everything, but it's like huge chunks are missing, and funny anecdotes might have not been recorded, or they would have been recorded on the audio but not necessarily the video.
Right. Yeah, and that's man. Yeah, I don't envy your job on that one, Andy.
Yeah, it's. But I mean, it was a good time that we had.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, if you follow us on our Instagram, you saw like in our stories and and you saw the photo that we had returning guests. We had uh, Christina and Stephanie on, and it was a good conversation. It was very. I think it's an important conversation to have, especially nowadays. I'm not gonna give it away because I want you guys to really really enjoy it, and I don't want to ruin it. But it is an important topic, particularly nowadays.
Yep. Yeah, it is.
So so look for so be on the lookout for that one for that episode and for when that episode drops. Um, but anyway, I mean, I didn't spend the whole weekend with you. So what'd you do after recording?
I was still really tired. So I didn't get a whole lot of sleep after the on Saturday
Uh-huh.
because I ended up I was staying up late and watching Star Wars with my girlfriend, and because she's never seen the original one,
Mm.
A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
So and she's a sci-fi fan, so it's like, okay, well this is the quintessential
Yeah,
like sci-fi.
it's like required reading for a college class.
Yeah, exactly. Like and so she was like, she was pretty excited to watch it, and well, her favorite character turned out to be Princess Leia.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all of them, and I was like, well, for me, Han Solo is my favorite character, so it kind of works out. She likes Leia, I like Han, and we.
Yeah, because it'd be really awkward if it was Luke.
Yeah, right. So we did that, and then I ended up not getting a whole lot of sleep, and then I woke up early to get stuff prepared for the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that, I got home and I was like, I'm exhausted because I didn't really get a whole lot of rest after a long day on Saturday. And after that, I woke up like later on and I was like, I wasn't sure, I wasn't really feeling all that well.
Mm-hmm.
But I decided to I was starting to watch some videos, kind of get ready for the for tonight for the live stream, get watching stuff for that. So
Mm-hmm.
and kind of some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about, kind of like watching it again, and so I'm a little bit more ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
But that was mainly my weekend.
Mm. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because after recording, um, I just I booked it and tried to make the tail end of my church service. Luckily for me, my church service starts at 12:30 and like kind of
Oh yeah,
ends like around 2.
that's a long service, dude.
Yeah, yeah,
Jeez.
you're telling me. I sit through it. I sit through it every Sunday. So.
No, it's like, and I'm not saying that that's like a bad thing. I just like, man, I haven't been in a church service that long in a long time.
Yeah. Well, we have like 30 minutes of worship, like praise, and then the sermon runs about an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I still because then luckily for me, my church has started to upload the sermons on Facebook. So actually still haven't watched it yet because I was I was going through the footage from the recording session, but I will get to it because right now we're in Genesis, and we're right at I think this past sermon was talking about Lot,
Oh yeah.
and the judgment of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Always a good one.
Always a great one.
There's a lot in that story, which, to be honest, and I probably one of the rare people is like I actually believe that this happened. Um,
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm certain.
well,
I'm
I
certain
know
that
there.
I'm certain like something happened to Sodom and Gomorrah, and and I'm sure it was justified.
Well, I know there's a lot of people that think that the majority of Genesis, it's all like mythology and tall tales that
Hmm.
tell a good lesson. Um, but to me, it's like, and I don't think that that's, they're not, to me, they're not just stories. Like, I think these people existed, and B, these things happened. You know,
Hmm.
it's especially based off of like my beliefs and knowing that Genesis itself it's a historical narrative. So it's not if it was a prophetical book, then you could say like, well, these may be like certain symbols or whatnot, but it's not that. That's a whole another podcast, in and of itself. I could talk about that for a long time.
Hmm.
But
Right.
yeah. But no, the story of Lot is very interesting.
Indeed. Yeah. Uh, well, speaking of I don't know how hearsay, legend. I know actually after our recording session, me and Robert got talking a little bit as I was breaking down the equipment, and you had reference we kind I forgot how we necessarily got to this point, but then we kind of got into the or you brought up the notion of how sometimes um, I don't know, the perceived or like the legend of someone it could be more important than uh, the actual person.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so
Why don't you why don't you explain exactly how
so
or like what made you
how
start
I
thinking about
arrived at
that?
this idea.
Yeah.
So
How did you get to this idea?
recently, I've been watching some videos by a guy by the name of Stephen Molyneux. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if anyone out there knows who he is, but he has a variety of different like videos that he does, and he had a whole series, and I think he still does this series. It's called the Truth About series,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes he'll talk about certain historical figures. Sometimes even like it doesn't necessarily need to be like like he could go as to Aristotle. Hell, he even did one on David Letterman for God's sake. So I mean, it's all. I mean, it's really he did one on Charles Manson, which was really interesting. Um, but the one that really kind of caught my attention was his Truth About George Washington episode, and it was a fairly long one. And now some of the stuff that I knew about him just from because I like that period of history, and so learning about some what we would deem as the founding fathers I find interesting. So learning about them is interesting. And but it's been a while. I'll be honest, it's been a while since I've studied about George Washington, and just going back and like kind of going through some of these things is you look in Washington. Well, he's still. I wouldn't necessarily categorize him as a great man, but uh, and if you look at the other founding fathers of our country, he was not really a huge part in a sense, like as far as like the ideas and the formulation of the country. He was not really in part of that, but he was, kind of in his own right. He was very politically savvy, for one. I'll give him that. As a as a general, he was not it took him a while for him to get his to get going, because he had a lot of losses, even when he was with when he was a soldier for the Brits, and even
That's right.
and even as the general of the Continental Army, it took a while for there to even be some sort of remote success. And even the success he did have was kind of like happenstance. It was by luck. Almost this like weird, dumb luck, or some would say God ordained, luck. And so in a sense, it's like and I remember reading about this stuff, and by learning the truth about the truth of someone like George Washington. Obviously, we know like some of the mythology behind him, and even in his day, those successes mythologized him in his own time period, and he was so, for the most part, very well respected, well received, and people saw him. He was the figurehead of this very young country, and it brought to mind another Simpsons reference time, an episode of The Simpsons called Lisa the Iconoclast, in which she's studying it's like the bicentennial of the town of
Right,
Springfield.
the founding of Springfield.
Right, which is who was founded by a guy named Jebediah Springfield, and Lisa, in her work on an essay that she's doing about Jebediah Springfield, discovers that he was not who he said he was. He was actually a pirate and all this stuff, and it was all the stuff that was talked about and that everyone like saw. It was all a lie. He had become a mythological figure in a lot of ways. So, and in her pursuit of the truth, and when she was about ready, she had all the evidence, and she was about to reveal all of that to the people. She looked around and saw like what.
Well, I mean, let me just jump in real fast. And well, she was at first she did try to like inform people about this, and and she met some like resistance, and um, even Mose is like the most cantankerous character on maybe after Grandpa Simpson was like disgusted at her what's the word I'm looking for, her proposition that Jebediah
Yeah.
Springfield was anything less than a hero.
Right. Well, and here, well, the your hero phobia disgusts me.
Yeah.
But no, it was, but she wasn't trying to reveal it yet to the whole town. It was more to like certain groups to try to like
Right. She was like,
get the word out there.
slowly but sure, like, and with like with Homer's help, she like I think like one of the first groups she tried was all the guys at Moe's Tavern, which then led to Moe being like, "You sicken me, get it, get out."
Yeah. But like, and I think at the end when the evidence in place and more prominent backing of her evidence, and she was given a platform to go up and say the truth, but she saw how like the legend of Jebediah Springfield had brought everyone together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and like it not only did it bring them together, but it made them better. It unified everybody. And that's kind of like how I feel about some of the things about George Washington, because there's a lot of stuff that's mythologized about him, yet at the same time it brought so many people together. And it's and when Lisa was asked by I forget the character's name. It was voiced by Donald Sutherland, but he was
Oh
like,
yeah,
why did
he was like the caretaker or like the historian
um
of
yeah,
the Springfield like historical society, I believe it was.
right, where the dead comes where the dead comes alive
Yeah.
metaphorically. But he was like, well, why didn't you tell them the truth? It's like, because the myth of Jebediah Springfield has value too. And
Mm-hmm.
it just like that whole watching that whole thing, and then it just brought to mind that idea of, from that Simpsons episode. And I think what Lisa said is very true. Sometimes the legend of someone, while we know the truth, the legend of that person has a lot of value in it as well. um,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, like, I think it's important to understand, our important historical figures. um, I mean, I think if you look at the Bible sometimes, and our quote unquote biblical heroes are very human and flawed,
Oh yeah,
yet
absolutely. I
yet we
mean,
also revere them.
right. I mean, I think one of the biggest examples would be King David. Um,
Yeah,
he at first, he was a youth, and he was, a man. He was described as a man after God's heart. Um, he stood up to the Goliath, the giant Goliath, and prevailed. He was loyal to Saul, and Saul turned against him, and then he became king, and then he then went and took another man's wife and killed him over it. Um,
yeah,
you know, uh, you know, a very a flawed character, but yet he's David is still revered as someone again as he was the moniker that he was given a man after God's heart.
and in a lot of ways, like, it's not necessarily like legend, because the guy exists.
Hmm.
But I think there's a lot of times where we don't always look at the bad of King David, but we're inspired by the good in him.
Right, right.
And
That,
by looking at what he did well, it inspires us to be better. And I think that has a lot of value in it.
hmm. Right. I
Um,
mean, this might not be an apt example, but I mean, just recently, the kind of things that have been coming out about Martin Luther King Jr.
right,
You know, again, these haven't been corroborated, but if true, it definitely casts a different light on on Martin Luther King. Um, but should that take? But I mean, the things that he's accused of are so grotesque. But should we? Not that it should change the way that we look at him, but the way look at should it alter the philosophy that he ultimately was pushing. That judge a person by the
right.
content of the character, not their skin color, and all men are created equal, and wishing that one day his black children will get along with little white children, and all that good stuff.
And like I said, there's lots of that. There's a lot of things that he did that were awesome. They were great, and should transcend the test of time. And yet there was also some things that he did that were, just, if they're true, pretty deplorable. And
I mean, I think
there's definitely
one thing that's not as grotesque, but that the proposition that he plagiarized his doctorate, uh, uh, what is it, like, thesis, doctoral thesis.
Oh wow, I actually hadn't heard that one.
Yeah, like, I mean, there's some really compelling evidence where I forget like where he lifted it from, but if you like read, if you read his doctoral thesis, and then, like, I forget again, I can't remember who he lifted it from, or allegedly lifted it from, but I hear that it's like it's striking that it's there's no it's like it leaves little doubt that he plagiarized his doctoral thesis.
But yeah, it's but I think, like, with that, and part of me thinks too that there are some people who, it's like they live in a very black and white world. So, oh well, if a good person did something bad, well then they're just bad, um, or no bad person can do any, like, good thing, and so you just kind of like they want to wipe those people out from history, and I think there's in a lot, and I've always said is like, listen, all the the quote unquote good guys in history aren't always like the best people, and
Mm-hmm.
all the quote unquote bad guys are not always all that bad. We're all just, I mean, there are some like legitimately evil people in the world. Don't get me
Right.
wrong. I mean,
I mean,
there's been a
yeah,
few.
yeah. I
There's
mean,
been
look at
many others.
JFK. Possible homosexual, possible womanizer, or more or less confirmed womanizer, but
Yeah,
possible homosexual.
but he did other good. I think he
Oh
did
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
potentially some
exactly.
other good things. Yeah,
Right, exactly my point.
but that's yeah, but that's what I mean. It's like all these people just have flaws.
Mm-hmm.
We're all not perfect.
It's
And
like that
but I
saying
think
goes:
by
never
knowing,
meet your heroes.
yeah, and speaking of that too, like, one of my heroes who I would say is still a huge head influence on my life, is one of my favorite sports stars is Dale Earnhardt. Now I
Mm-hmm.
know, like, there's a lot of good things that he did, and there are some other things where it's like, yeah, not maybe he could have done a lot better. Like, probably not like in that he was like abusive towards like women, but he wasn't like he didn't have the best, um, especially early on in his life. He was not. He had several marriages that didn't work out. Um, was kind of like very career focused, and so his kids didn't always get to see him a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I know you hear these stories from from his actual kids who are pretty famous in their own right,
Mm-hmm.
but there was so many good things that he did, like just in a guy that pretty much quit school in the eighth grade, which he was never proud about, and he turned himself into um, he changed the sport, brought it to you know a lot of prominence, and did so many good things for so many people, and created careers, and did a lot of like great charity work, and but like I said, still a flawed guy.
Right.
Um, but I look at that, and I think knowing like some of the challenges that he faced and some of his flaws, it makes I almost like him more because of that, because he seems like more real. It's not like I'm still admire him. I'm not looking up, like it's not an idol, but it's more of like he's at my level, and it's like, wow, you know what, I can actually be,
Right.
some of the good things that
He
he
seems more accessible.
exactly. And uh so I look at, it's like, yeah, there's people like, oh, don't meet your heroes, but I never met him, unfortunately, but but by knowing his flaws and knowing, but still knowing that he did a lot of good things too, it feels like it's not this unattainable thing.
Right.
So yeah, it was just he said, no, I don't know why just all this stuff kind of brought that to mind, and I don't know, I thought it was important to talk about.
Right, and I think, yeah, because nowadays, a lot of people are, what is it, wanting to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's like, you have to be like all good, or it's like is not even worth, considering. And like I think that's um, kind of a bad mentality to have. I think because nowadays it's referred to as cancel culture. Um, and I think and then well, the most prominent or the latest victim of this is Mario Lopez. Um, because he went on Candace Owens' podcast, and the subject of trans kids came on, and he just said it's like, hey, these are I don't think 3-year-olds are capable of making life altering decisions, and everyone came down on him like a ton of bricks, and and they squeezed them, to get a mea culpa out of him, and over saying like, yeah, I don't think children should be making life altering decisions like that. It's like it'd be like saying like, yeah, I don't think 3-year-olds should 3-year-olds should get liposuction. That's pretty much what he was saying. That's pretty much that all he was. It was akin to that. Like, I don't think 3-year-olds should decide that they should get liposuction.
Like, oh, I don't think trans people should exist, or
Right.
I don't like trans people, or anything. To be honest, it's actually, I think it's a very, I think what he said is normal. It's like, I'm a little concerned when we're giving young children stuff that's going to completely change and maybe negatively, if in his kind of what he was saying is like it negatively affect their body, and he wasn't like it wasn't a hateful thing. It
Right.
was
It was
just
it was
I'm
completely
concerned.
out of concern for the child.
Right.
I mean, we bar children from drinking and smoking and even drinking coffee. And but yet,
Right.
they say that they feel like this gender or that gender, and they say, oh yes, immediately give them hormones, chop, hack off, whatever genitalia, and it's like, go on your way. It's like, well, you won't let kids have coffee, but you'll pump them full of hormones, and you'll advocate for really life altering surgery. There's an imbalance there.
Right. But yeah, but going back to that idea of like the cancel culture is like, if you we're gonna have nothing left. There's gonna be nothing.
Right. Exactly. I mean, because and especially if you try to, this is kind of where I got off on the Jordan Peterson train, is that the entire message was, do not bend, do not apologize to a mob. You could apologize to a person, an individual, but you cannot apologize to the mob. And that's exactly what he did. And that's exactly what Mario Lopez did. And there's some people who are gonna take the apology and just move about their business. But there's some, like, I believe the more rabid type, are just gonna be like, no, it's not good enough. I want him gone. I don't ever want to hear them name Mario Lopez ever again on like TV or radio or magazine or whatever. And I think and that's what we have to combat against.
Yeah, and and here's the thing: it's like when it comes to that, like, see, I think what he really believed came out in that podcast, and
Oh no,
then
yeah, 100%, 100%.
and that's what he really thinks, and so it's okay. That's who he is. There we go. There's his real thought. The bowing to the mob. To be honest, I feel terrible for the guy. Everyone like wants to like bash him, like, oh, how dare he? Like from our side, it's like how could he like show weakness to this angry mob? And then it's like, but the angry mob also doesn't care. It's like he's already dead. They're just kicking his corpse down the street at this point. So he's kind of he. I feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, well, for me, it's not even like I'm necessarily mad that he apologized, but I'm mad that he feels that he had to apologize for this, for the sake of, like for the sake of his family or what have you. Um, and I don't want to discount like that fear because it's a real thing, and I mean, I'm not a, I don't have my own family um, to look after or provide for, so I don't want to be too harsh on the guy, but
Well, and
when you're advocating, but when you're advocating for children, you should never have to apologize for that.
true. And I wonder too, like when it comes to that, because I mean, when I think of controversy and Mario Lopez, those kind of those two things don't really go together. He
Right?
actually
I know,
seems like
like he's
he seems
cultivated
like a
like this.
genuinely nice guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's spent entire career cultivating this. I mean, I don't know, like almost like squeaky clean kind of reputation and persona. He's been on Extra for God knows how many
And,
years, and he also hosts like radio shows, and I think he has his own podcast as well. But then the big thing came was when the big thing is when he got that job at Access Hollywood and like on NBC, and then like even after he went on Candace Owens' podcast and made those comments. They put out in the newspapers or whatever like that NBC execs had an emergency meeting to talk about this and to discuss like what they were gonna do. It's like why he was just advocating for like the non harm of children. That was it.
right, and I
It's like
think,
telling
well, I don't
children
know.
don't run with scissors. That's what I equated to.
Right.
It's like kids don't run with scissors.
Right. And I wonder too, like, I don't know if it was because of the NBC executives or if he maybe, a guy who maybe all of a sudden started receiving a bunch of these, wacko like death threats that some of these people get, when you don't because he's been a guy that's been very vanilla. Like, I don't think he's advocated or said anything very controversial ever.
Right. No, I don't
um,
think he's. Yeah, I don't. To my knowledge, he hasn't said anything against gay people or minorities. I mean, his family is from Mexico.
yeah. And, but like what I'm saying is like maybe like he saw like all these like, oh, you deserve to die and you're
Well, yeah,
kill
yeah,
your
yeah,
kids, all
yeah.
this stuff, and it makes you think like a guy who maybe never received any of this, and like, yeah, maybe he just kind of like, oh shit.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, being in the public eye for as many years as he has, I'm sure he's gotten a certain flavor. But it's like now with like the internet, it's a and with like social media, it's a little bit more instant. It's a lot less filtered than maybe what he's been used to. Back
Right.
back in the day when he maybe got letters from fans.
Yeah,
But
where they
now
actually had
like
to put it through the mail.
yeah,
It's
exactly. And now like with Twitter, it's like it's like instantly there. It's
instant.
you can't like with the phones, you're constantly carrying it around with you. So
Yeah.
there's no real way of getting away from
But yeah, it's man.
it. Yeah.
I kind of feel bad for the guy.
Yeah,
I
no
do.
doubt. Yeah, no doubt. It's I mean, full disclosure. I mean, me and you, we grew up with this guy on TV. You know.
Yeah, I grew up with Saved by the Bell and AC Slater and all those
Exactly.
guys.
We
It's like,
grew up with this guy, and so when he does good, it's like, oh yeah, good for you. Yeah, way to go, Slater. But then now it's like, all this is happening. It's like, I feel bad that you feel like you have to do this, like, to keep providing for your family, but at the cost of what? You know, you're doing this at the cost of what?
yeah.
So you could still, like, keep your family, in the 90210, or still, like, keep up a certain lifestyle. But it's like, when you're advocating for the safety of children, that you shouldn't have to apologize for that.
Oh, I agree. But that's the time we live in now. It's like even something like that is seemingly controversial, which it shouldn't be.
It's quite infuriating, and it's quite annoying. Anyways.
It's been a weird week. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I know.
This
Yeah.
is just it's been a wild and crazy week.
Right. Yeah, I know. And we're purposely not talking about certain things, because we don't want to keep feeding into that, and and I don't think it's healthy to keep dwelling on, like, the evils that happen and that go on. So
I think we combat evil with good and doing something different to living up to our motto.
Yeah, castigate redendo mores.
And because I don't want to talk about that stuff. But even in the innocuous news, so it's been weird. It's been a weird week.
Yeah, I mean,
that being up
like,
there with Mario Lopez.
Right. I guess, like, the other one that we didn't really talk about was that trans woman that demanded her balls to be waxed.
Oh God. And well, here's the crazy part is this. It's a dude. So he.
Right. Yeah.
I refuse to. I'm not using it. His terminology that he
How dare
wants.
you,
But
Robert? How dare you?
I know. Probably get
You're
some death
hateful.
threats or something.
You're canceled. You're fired.
I know, right? I'm D person.
Yes. You're D person.
But what's come out about that guy is that he's trying to, like, create this 12-year-old pool party or whatever with where their parents aren't invited, which is really creepy. Like, some of the stuff that he's been talking about, it's like this guy is a predator. He's a sexual predator. It's not that, like, he's like, oh, I'm a grown man, I decided to go through this thing and change my body chemistry and whatnot, which, if someone chooses to do that, go for it, whatever. It's your body.
Yeah, you're an adult.
But
You can make up your own. You can make up your own. You can make your own decisions.
right, but this guy is. It's not, because there's people that have done that and they don't harm other people's life. This guy is a predator. You look at some of the stuff he said to like really horrible things that he said to other women who, like, were struggling with, like, getting pregnant, and they were having some issues in that department, and making fun of, like, how their uterus sucks and doesn't work. Or you had, like I said, trying to get into help girls figure out how to use their tampons and stuff like that. And it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, that guy is clearly deranged, or some sort of I don't know if he's deranged, predator, what the hell he is, but he needs to be steered, if not stayed away from, but, like, just disgusting. It creeps me out, dude. This to me is giving another avenue to sexual predators, for people that are doing it to children or or even women in a lot of cases. Because this guy who hasn't even cut off his stuff. Clearly, he's trying
Right,
to
I know. Like if he's asking to get bikini wax on his balls, then
which for a
yeah,
guy is way different than a woman. There's very specific. There's a lot of differences when it comes to waxing those two areas.
right, yeah, and it's like and it's hot wax too. So like, it's gonna hurt like hell.
Right, and
I mean, not to say that when a woman does it, they don't feel pain either, but
no,
speaking from a male perspective, the balls are very sensitive. And they're
it's not
very sensitive to temperature as well. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and the fact that he did all that, and it's just disgusts me. But like him doing this is, to me, people like this is another avenue towards sexual predation.
Well,
And
it's already happened. It's been happening all this time. Like there was a story that, of course, that got buried and no one talked about. But there's a story of like this municipal pool in Seattle, and there was like this girls' swim team that was in like the women's locker room, and a man just walks in there, and drops trowel and changes like right in front of these girls, and a parent, a mother came and told or try to notify the facilities staff or whatever, and the guy just said, "I identify as a woman, deal with it," basically, and and nothing happened to him. And then and there's also like all the Target stories where there's a guy that that claimed he was that claimed he was a woman, and then went into like the women's changing area, and I don't know, he was like looking over the tops of like the stalls or whatever where like little girls were like changing, and it's like, and then again nothing happened because the story got buried and no one talked about it.
God, it really creeps me out so much.
Yeah, I know, I get it. I'm with you.
My skin crawls just like.
I mean, yes, I don't have a daughter, but I have several. I have several nieces. And if I'm ever in the vicinity, I might not be responsible for what happens. That's all I have to say.
I don't blame you, Andy.
That's all I have to say. If if I'm with them and and something and something happens, I can't be held responsible for what I do. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
All right, we're pretty much doing really great on time.
Awesome. So should we jump into the movie?
Yeah, why not?
So I'm gonna premise the idea why I wanted to do this movie. So I just finished playing a game called Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is based in ancient Greece. But there's also a lot of they've added some of the fantasy elements into it, of some of the Greek mythology, and kind of using some of that and incorporating some of the game's kind of like mythology. So it kind of I find it to be very interesting, and it kind of piqued my interest again in Greek mythology, which I've always kind of enjoyed, but I haven't really read much of it in many years.
I love Greek mythology. I love that.
As do I. I haven't had a chance to go through and read through some of it again. So I was like, I think it would be kind of a fun movie to watch is Jason and the Argonauts, which is also a actually, that's one of the Greek mythological tales. I don't think I ever read that one, because this movie is an actual taken from an actual tale from Greek mythology.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who wrote the story, but
Right. I mean, I don't think there's any one author attributed to it,
oh,
but
I see. Not like the Odyssey with like Homer's Odyssey and stuff
right,
like
or
that.
the Iliad, which is basically the before the Odyssey, like and
Yeah,
it's about the Trojan War.
right. It's the Iliad, then you read the Odyssey,
Right.
and let me tell you, that's some awesome stuff.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
If you want to get into Greek mythology, you start with those two works.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. Let me give a quick synopsis of the movie. Jason and the Argonauts. After saving the life of his royal father's usurper, Pelles, whom he fails to recognize, Jason is encouraged by the conniving murderer to begin a quest in search of the Golden Fleece. In doing so, Pelles hopes for Jason's death to thwart the prophecy that he will reclaim the throne. Along the journey, Jason is protected by the goddess Hera, and his crew includes Hercules and Acastus.
Yeah, Cassus is the son of King Pelias.
Oh right, oh yeah, he's kind of like the spy. A saboteur planted by Pelles. Right. Yeah, this movie came out in 1963. It's most noted for its visual effects by one Ray Hare. Hold on.
Isn't it Ray Harryhausen or
Yeah,
something
that's
like
right,
that?
Ray Harryhausen. He also did Clash of the Titans, Sinbad, and a bunch of Sinbad movies. Not the comedian.
I was just gonna say that.
That's a dated reference, but
Who is still really funny too, by the way.
yeah. I remember his cameo on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was the best. Yeah, this is Rob Thomas. Like Rob Thomas, sing something. Shut up. uh, yeah. This is one of the ancient Greek myths. It's said to have taken place before the Trojan War. But yes, Jason is the rightful king of what is it? Thessaly, I believe it was in the movie at least.
Yeah, Thessaly.
Yeah, Thessaly, and this warlord comes and uh, kills off his family and usurps the throne from the rightful heir Jason. And there's a prophecy saying that he'll come back to take over the throne, and he'll be known as a man with one sandal. And yeah, and Pelles is thrown into the water, and then Jason's walking by and saves him. And he loses his sandal in the process, and Pelles immediately recognizes him. And so right, yeah, like how it said in the synopsis that I just read, he then tries to get him, he almost does like a King David, where he sends Jason off on this perilous journey or quest, hoping that he dies.
Yeah, that was pretty much like the idea behind it. Is like, haha, I'll send him on this, this journey that will probably kill him. Yeah, and if he doesn't die, I'm gonna put my son there to make sure that he dies.
Right. It's like a little bit of insurance.
Right. And yeah, that's the basic premise of the story. Us as the viewer, we're going on this journey with Jason and his crew that he assembles by throwing a special games to find the best and the
Right, to test,
strongest of all the Greeks.
all the best athletes in Greece, their javelin throwing skills, their slingshot skills, just basically picking the best of the best.
Yeah.
And they set forth on this journey. This movie is particularly noteworthy because of, I think, the groundbreaking special effects. Particularly the stop
Yeah.
motion, the stop motion
Which for
animation.
63 was to mix that with live action
Hmm.
for 1963. They did a pretty damn good job, to be
Right. Yeah,
honest.
and I think the most famous scene is towards the end when the king of what, what's that?
It's Colchris.
Right. He he takes the teeth of a defeated Hydra and he scatters them into a field, and all of a sudden like these skeleton warriors pop up, and Jason and his Argonauts have to fight them off. And I think that's the most famous scene within that movie.
Right. And
Because
it's funny. It's like
because it does like this really great mixture of like the live action where like the actors have to pretend like they're fighting again off some skeletons, but then they have to later go back and film these stop motion skeletons attacking uh, the actors, and then superimposing the skeleton film over the actor's performance, and it's like
oof, man, that must have taken a
yeah, it was like
shitload.
it's incredible work.
It was funny. I was thinking, like, because I'm wearing my Legends Zelda shirt today, and
Mm.
while I was watching that scene, it's like, oh, Stelphos. It's like a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. It's funny because Ray Harryhauser, he was I want to say that he was kind of the Andy Serkis of his generation.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Or yeah,
Just because.
or I don't want to say that because Harryhauser came before Andy Serkis, but he was comparable to Andy Serkis, back of his time,
Yeah.
because Andy Serkis is known as like the pioneer of motion capture kind of work, blending motion capture performances, and then having computer generated graphics laid over. Um, and
Right.
similarly,
He was
Ray
a.
Hey, what was that?
No, I was saying when it came to, he was a legend in that. Like, he changed the game in a lot of
Right,
ways.
exactly. Similarly to the Andy Serkis
Yeah.
did with
Yeah,
motion capture.
I think of guy when I think of when it comes to like visual effects like that. Like I look to Lon Chaney Sr. and Jr. with like what they would do with makeup artistry.
Mm-hmm.
Because all those costumes that were created, they did that by themselves, and they revolutionized um, that that part of film. Then you
Mm-hmm.
get guys like Harryhausen that with stop motion. You get Andy Serkis with the motion capture, and Andy Serkis is he's been so many different characters, but it feels so like natural.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Exactly.
to me, like his magnum opus recently was the last Planet of the Apes film. My
Oh
God,
yeah, Caesar. Mm-hmm.
yeah, oh, it just there's times like I forgot that I was looking at CG. That's how realistic it looked.
Right, and just like his performance, just like you completely forget that you're watching this computer generated chimpanzee.
Right.
It's
But
just
and
like
I'm watching like when I'm watching Jason and the Argonauts, I mean, yeah, I know it's stop motion, but for how they put it all together, it seemed pretty seamless. I was shocked at how
mm-hmm.
good the visual effects and how it looked. They did a
Right,
great
yeah, and
job.
again, this was 1963.
That's the other thing is you had to keep that in mind because there's you can tell when they're switching off to like one of the stop motion stuff
Mm-hmm.
because the picture you can tell it looks a little different,
Mm-hmm.
but they still like seamlessly like brought it together where it didn't look like they were like fighting nothing. They actually it looked like they were fighting the actual stop motion characters. But then you even had with like the scenes where they're traveling through the crashing rocks,
Mm-hmm.
and you had King Triton like holding up the mountains for them, and
Right,
that was
right.
pretty like how they got that to work looked
Right, yeah, and like
amazing.
getting the shot, like the perspective shots, of them like traveling by and seeing, like looking up at Triton, and just getting those perspective shots is like, wow, this is amazing work.
Yeah, because it's not just the skeleton warriors. I mean, you had the fight with the Hydra. You
Mm-hmm.
had that's going on with the crashing rocks. You had the fight with Talos,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just
Oh, and then the harpies.
the harpies. Yeah, um, and it was just how they put everything together. It was just I love this movie. This is
Yeah.
not the visual effects were great. The music was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, the rousing, like
yeah.
brass and pounding of the drums, just
Yeah. What were some of your thoughts on the film, Andy? Like, what did you like? What didn't you like about it?
right. I mean, I think similarly to you, I was just marveling at the technical wizardry taking place. Particularly, again, because particularly this was made back in 1963, before computers and CG and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Because we kind of take that stuff for granted now. Especially with like the Marvel stuff. Where a lot of it is done with like motion capture stuff. And I think I remember like when the skeleton scene happened, it kind of reminded me of the first Avengers and the Chitauri.
yeah,
It kind of reminded me of that, and just thinking about like how well that they did it in 1963, and just like having it come almost full circle all the way to 2012 when the first Avengers came out, and it's just like because the Chitauri were basically skeleton warriors, more or less. And so having a battle against like skeleton warriors like so many years after Jason and the Argonauts is like, wow, we've really come a long way.
yeah. But yeah, I when it comes to, like I liked all that stuff about it, and to me, on top of it, it's Greek mythology, so uh, which are I've always really enjoyed. So you get like you get to see, I mean it didn't follow exactly the story of
Mm-hmm.
Jason and the Argonauts. I mean there were some differences, but the fact that like you kind of got to see it played out, like how it actually might have the story might have looked.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously this didn't actually happen, but it was a tale that was told. But um, seeing it like kind of come to life was kind of cool.
Right. I think maybe my only criticism is how abruptly it ended.
Okay, I was gonna bring this up too because that was the part that bugged me. It's like, so the whole point was of the whole like prophecy is that Jason or like one of the I forget who the king was, Aristus, I believe it was, where one of his children was going to kill King Pelias, and that was the whole start of this journey. That like, and it was Pelias trying to kind of subvert the prophecy by sending Jason on this quest, and Jason um, triumphs in that quest, but isn't he supposed to come back and then kill King Pelias? Like, so I mean, obviously he killed his son, but isn't he like? And I don't know. And like I said, I've not read this particular Greek mythological tale, so I don't know if this happens. But doesn't isn't he supposed to come back and kill the guy? Isn't that part of the prophecy? But we don't get that. We just get the I have the golden fleece now. All right, and then it's like it's it's like it's then it was done. So I was like, and I was thinking, it's like, oh, maybe they made like they did a like another movie to kind of a continuation. I looked, there's not. They did a remake of Jason and the Argonauts, but um, I think it's just the same story.
Right. Yeah. I mean, really, that's only my one criticism because like there's no resolution to the prophecy that was set up, and from the very beginning of the movie, and that is Jason is supposed to come back and kill Pelas, and then take his rightful place as the king of Thessaly.
Yeah, that was the thing that bugged me about it too. Is I felt I was satisfied yet dissatisfied at the same time.
Hmm. Right. I'm glad that he was able to get the fleece, get the girl, beat the skeleton warriors. But it's like, okay, and then like it's like the end. It's like, what? He doesn't even like get to go back and like kill the guy that killed his family.
Yeah, that was the part that's like I felt it bugged
Yeah,
me a
I
little
felt
bit. Yeah,
cheated.
yeah.
I felt cheated.
But yeah, this is overall though. I really like this film. I'm glad I finally watched it. I've been actually meaning to watch this one for quite a while,
Hmm.
um, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, I remember watching this in elementary school,
Yeah.
and even back then, it was the graphics were I didn't have like the same appreciation for the graphics. I still enjoyed the story. I thought the story was very compelling. I think that's what got me really interested in Greek mythology. Um, and I think a hallmark of Greek mythology is like there's the hero and then there's the quest. Particular, and
Yeah.
I think it's like usually what is it? Instigated by the gods. And so yeah, I thought yeah. So like not just like Jason and the Argonauts, but like the 12 labors of Hercules, or Perseus and Andromeda, or
Oh
even
yeah. I mean,
just the
there's hundreds
stories
and hundreds
of
of
the
tales.
god, the kind of like the feuding gods. There's the story of like Hades and Persephone, and what else? Well, then and like how we were mentioning before, there's the Iliad, where um, that basically was a family feud because the Trojans and the Greeks were at war, and then the gods took sides.
Yep.
Some backed the Greeks, some backed the Trojans.
Yeah. So it was yeah, it's just all these stories are really fascinating just because if you like adventure, if you like drama, uh, this the kind of that hero's quest and struggling to survive to make it into and even like there's a lot of tragedy in it too, where there's a lot of you have to make a lot of the characters have to make lots of sacrifices
Mm-hmm.
um, to complete their objective,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I think and this is just another one of those where there was a lot of challenges and um, tragedy and triumph. It's all that wrapped into one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if you know this, but there's also kind of like the follow up to, I mean, not the movie, but the myth of Jason and Medea, and it's Medea, she him, her and Jason, get married and like have children, and Medea actually goes crazy and kills her children.
I did not know this.
Yeah,
Yeesh.
yeah, because there's like, yeah, I mean, I think out of all the Greek myths, there had never been a sequel. I don't think there's a sequel other than the one for Jason and Medea.
That's I mean, I guess you could say the Odyssey is a continuation
Well, I mean,
of the Iliad.
but specifically for one hero, because the Iliad has a myriad of heroes. You have Achilles, Ajax, Odysseus, Agamemnon, on and on and on.
True.
But there's and and then the Odyssey is just focused specifically on Odysseus. But rarely do you have a myth that like continues on like the fate of a single hero like that.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, I didn't really think of it that way, but yeah, you're right. That's pretty rare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So are you ready to give your rating?
I am ready to give my rating. You want me to start off with that one?
After you.
So I'm gonna give it a oh, this is a tough one. I'm gonna give it I probably about a 3.5, just because I felt so dissatisfied with the ending.
Hmm.
But everything but the music is good. The visual effects, I think what they accomplished, especially at such an early date, is pretty amazing. And I love Greek mythology because the story itself was really good, but God, the ending killed me, man. I was so disappointed. I was like, I wanted vengeance, damn it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I can't fault you for that. You know. Um. Uh. I want. I was gonna give this a 4. Um. Because I think production values are just so great. Like the costume and everything. Even like that creepy looking Hera mask piece that they had that occasionally
Right.
came to life and like spoke to Jason. Even that level of detail was very admirable. But and even though like I talk very highly of like the technical aspects of this, and and again I love Greek mythology, so that's never a point of contention. Um, yeah, but I think I have to follow suit with you and give it a 3.5.
Yeah, like I said, that ending just it
Yeah, it's just
dropped
because
it.
like you know it's just like it's almost a mortal sin to set something up in a movie but have no payoff.
Right, and that's what I felt like. It didn't complete the journey.
Right. Yeah. It just ended like after like the last kind of like boss fight, or like that kind of the mid tier boss fight, which was the skeleton warriors. He was then supposed to go and face off against Pelles, the main boss.
And it
But
never
it's like, oh
happened.
well, Jason, he's got the fleece, he's got the girl, so you know, it's like it's like it's like mission accomplished. It's like wait, what?
it's it's like, oh, we're just gonna continue adventuring and like, yeah, forget about all that. I'll just do my own thing. It's
Right?
like,
It's like no.
what?
It's like you're supposed to get revenge. You're supposed to John Wick that guy.
Right. Ugh. But yeah, but 3.5, that doesn't mean that it's like it's a shitty movie. No, don't get me wrong. Yeah, we love Jason and the Argonauts. It's a good film. Um, and I implore you to watch it if you haven't seen it. Like this is my first time watching it, and I was blown away. I liked it a lot. Just
Absolutely.
just the ending.
Yeah, it's a good solid watch. Definitely. Uh, what is it? Something to watch. Um, especially if you have young kids and you kind of want to get them. interested in reading, then
This is a good
I
way.
mean, it'd be a good way to introduce like Greek mythology because it's not Greek mythology. There's some certain questionable things like
Yeah.
brother and sisters getting married. Um, the certain philanderings of certain gods. Um, the murder of one's own children. Though through though not out of one's own desire, but because being driven mad to do it. Um, it's not very kid friendly, but this movie is a good entry point.
I would say this would be suitable for most kids, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, because back then there were there were standards, and so there's very little to no sex in this movie.
And the violence is really not like that much.
Right, and usually because what is it? Usually the violence is reserved for like the monsters.
Right.
Not to say that there isn't violence, but it's just it's a very tame violence. It's not a John Wick.
Yeah, it's definitely not that.
Yeah, so yeah, very, very, again, a good entry point for kids to get into Greek mythology with this movie.
I would agree.
All right. Well, we did super great on the time tonight.
Yeah, we did.
When we got we said everything we wanted to say. We touched on everything that we wanted to touch on, and we did it all within a timely fashion.
And you know what? We had fun doing it. I had fun. I
Yes.
feel a lot better
Right,
after
and
having
and I don't want to immediately go
fun.
slit my throat.
I know. Yeah. I was feeling a little down this week, and then I was like, man, I don't know. I don't want to be down and out for nocturnal transmissions. And you know what? It pumped me up.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
ready.
Because I mean,
I'm feeling
you're
good.
gonna get all the kind of despair stuff, in the mainstream media or like on other channels. But here, I mean, the most despair thing that we talked about was like the whole cancel culture thing. I think.
Yeah, we're contrarians on this podcast, Andy.
Right. I know everything. Yeah, everything is a subversion, and not in like that stupid Ryan Johnson's subversion thing.
Uh,
Where it's actually clever and thoughtful.
yeah. Oh, jeez, Ryan Johnson. That's
Jeez, I know.
makes my. Let's not go down that
I
rabbit
know.
hole.
If I ever meet someone who claims to like Star Wars and they say that their favorite Star Wars movie is Last Jedi, I might put my fist to their face.
I don't know if I could be friends with that person.
I know. I just it's like, oh, what's your favorite Star Wars film? Last Jedi. It's like,
I would
okay,
almost
just
say like
walk away.
I would almost say like if they said they liked Attack of the Clones the most, that'd be almost okay
Right?
compared to
Yeah,
like
that'd
saying they
be
like
more
Last Jedi.
understandable than Last Jedi.
Yeah. Oh, I can't even go. I don't know if that person exists. I hope God, I hope not.
Oh man, I hope not either. All right.
Oh,
Well, that'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to join us every Tuesday night, sometimes live, for Nocturnal Transmissions. Don't forget to check out the library of other content that we have, the Circle of Jerks main podcast, again, Nocturnal Transmissions, and Robert's gaming show, Up by Up Down. Don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts, Twitter at PodcastCOJ, and Instagram at Circle of Jerks Podcast. And with all that said, for Robert and myself, we say thank you and have a good night. And don't do anything I would.